Good morning, beloved. Today, in that first reading from St. Paul in the Corinthian church, and he begins to list some of the spiritual gifts, some of the manifestations of the Spirit. We see that the mighty deeds is number 4, and we have a mighty deed in the gospel, raising the dead. That's just number 4. It's not even the best, highest gifts. Pretty amazing, We have another gift here too, so Paul says, strive for all the gifts and the highest gifts of all. But we have another gift here that he doesn't mention, which I think is very important because we see it accompany Jesus with some of his miracles. And that is that gift of, we've said it before, the compassion of Jesus. So we see today, before Jesus raises this boy from the dead, this man from the dead, it says he was moved with pity for him. And that's the best translation, one of the best translations we have, really. Moved with pity or moved with compassion for him. But it means it was moved in his guts, in his insides. He was moved inside deeply. Think of especially like of a mom or a dad grieving over the pain or suffering or the loss of their child. They're moved inside almost uncontrollably. And that kind of compassion of Jesus, that's the true compassion of Jesus, not just something that, I feel this or I feel that, but I'm moved inside so much that I will now sacrifice something of myself. I will sacrifice something of myself to change this situation. I think the other most common one we know of, when Jesus was moved with pity or moved with compassion in his inner guts for the people, was when he was exhausted and his disciples were exhausted and they had come back from a long trip, and Jesus said, let's go away by ourselves for a while so you can rest, right? And they got in the boat and went to the other side, and the crowds followed them, and he got out of the boat and he was moved with compassion or moved with pity for them in his inner guts because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And so at that, he began to teach them and to pray and to heal them. And they were with him for so long. Remember that a couple of days, and then they were way out in the desert, and then he began to feed them. He fed the 5,000 men, not counting the women and the children. So from this compassion of Jesus, that in his inner guts, we see these different miracles happening. And so I think it's important for us today we can say, okay, as we are striving to say what Jesus said and teach what Jesus taught and do what Jesus did, now today we want to, of course, then if we want to practice what Jesus did, then we want to begin praying today, especially for raising the dead, but not just physical dead, but also those who are spiritually dead, the eternal death. That's more important. And so anybody today maybe that we see or hear of that's physically dead, pray for them, begin praying for them to be raised from the dead. Anybody we hear of or see that's spiritually dead, trapped in sin, hooked in sin, enslaved to sin, praying for their freedom, praying for them to be spiritually raised from the dead and experience life with God. But before all of that or with all of that, let us pray, spend some time praying and begging God to give us this gift of the compassion of Jesus, so that we will be moved in our inner guts for something to change. And then let that compassion in our inner guts empower our prayer for whoever we come across today.